Good morning. Join me here, as you can see, is a great group of San Diegans, city employees, some of our public safety leaders, with some good news regarding our budget. Among those present is our City Council member Chris Cate, Maya Rosas, who is Director of Policy for Circulate San Diego, Bob McElroy, President and CEO of Alpha Project, Andre Simpson, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Veterans Village of San Diego, Bill Bolsters, who is the Chief Revenue Officer for Father Joe's Villages, Peter Kaminsky, who is Executive Director of the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, Steve Snyder, President of the Fleet Science Center and Chair of Balboa Park Cultural Partnership, John Bolthouse, who's the Executive Director and Friends of Balboa Park, as well as you can see, many of our city executive team, department directors, and finance team, and great friends and supporters of Balboa Park and our cultural institutions here. We are here this morning to release an update to our FY 2020 proposed budget, a plan that continues to put neighborhoods first. And this budget increases funding the general fund by approximately $6.2 million. And most of it is surplus from this year's budget, thanks to tightening across a variety of city departments. We're using those resources to put the priorities of San Diegans at the front and center of everything that we do. We'll dedicate more resources to the Get It Done app so we can be more responsive to resolve issues faster throughout the city in every neighborhood. And I'm proposing more than $600,000 for program enhancements to ensure that this program continues to be cutting edge. We are also leveraging innovative technologies like dockless scooters to invest in the mobility infrastructure and transit projects. And with the new regulations and fees that we're putting into place, we'll generate over $2 million each year, and we're going to use those dollars for mobility upgrades and enforcement. We're also investing a lot more in housing incentives. We are doubling the popular fee waiver program for folks who want to build granny flats. And we're also launching a new pilot program to help our San Diego police officers buy homes in the city that they serve. It's another key step in our united effort to push to recruit and retain the best officers in the country. Councilmember Cate is going to talk about that in just a minute. And as part of this budget revision, we are also making strategic additions to focus on improving quality of life in neighborhoods. We're going to be planting 700 trees, hiring 3 more park rangers, installing more corrals for scooters, launching a bus pilot program on El Cajon Boulevard, removing more graffiti throughout the city, and bolstering brush management in our canyons, and funding a new disparity study for pay equity review. We're also going to do something I think a lot of people standing here behind me are going to like. As a separate budget action, I am directing that the $9.3 million that had previously been set aside for the Plaza de Panama project will stay right here in Balboa Park. Yeah. Dollars we'll be putting in our regional parks fund, where they will be able to be invested right here in this great park. Bathrooms, roof repairs, improvements that many residents and visitors will see. And it is no secret that many of the parts of Balboa Park that need attention and need these repairs, these dollars will make sure that that happens. San Diego is a great city, and these investments are going to go a long way with one goal. How do we help improve the quality of life for all of our residents? And before I conclude and introduce some of today's speakers, I would like to thank our hardworking city employees, many of you who you see standing behind me. This budget process is never easy, and I am grateful to their work, for their contributions that we see each and every day. I'd particularly like to thank our city's Chief Financial Officer, Rolando Charvel, and his team in our Department of Finance for putting this plan together. And also my Director of Finance Policy, Jessica Lawrence. Please give them a round of applause. Great job, guys. It's now my pleasure, as I mentioned earlier, to introduce Councilmember Chris Cate, who's going to be talking about a very new and innovative program. Councilmember? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, everybody. Public safety is our #1 priority. Over the past 2 years, the city has aggressively implemented substantial programs, salary increases, and benefits to help recruit and retain San Diego police officers in order to achieve full budgeted staffing levels. Recruitment and retention continues to be a priority in San Diego, and we must pursue additional creative programs to increase our efforts. San Diego's high cost of housing heavily impacts the decision of existing and potential officers to either stay or join the San Diego Police Department. According to the San Diego Police Officers Association, less than 30% of officers live within city limits. Many are forced to live far away in other parts of the county, and even in Riverside County, where housing is more affordable. Long commutes coupled with unconventional work schedules place a significant toll on officers' quality of life and can be a deterrent for officers to either join or stay with the department. Housing incentives, such as home buyer down payment assistance programs, can serve to help officers buy homes within the city of San Diego and provide an additional incentive to assist in the recruitment and retention of officers. Over the past year, I have worked with the POA to better understand our officers' housing needs, to create a partnership with nonprofits and financial institutions, and establish a framework for a police officer home buyer down payment assistance program. Home buyer assistance programs for public safety officers have been successfully implemented in other cities such as San Francisco and Chicago. The implementation of such a program in San Diego would provide an incentive that is currently unique to our region. This is an opportunity for the city to creatively establish another incentive program to help recruit and retain officers and achieve our goal of full sworn staffing levels within our department. I am pleased to see $250,000 allocated for our police officer home buyer down payment assistance program included in the Mayor Revise. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Maya Rosas, who is the Director of Policy for Circulate San Diego and has been a real leader and champion for additional mobility options here throughout our city. Maya?
Thank you. Oh, it's a little tall. Not as tall as the mayor. Good morning. My name is Maya Rosas. I'm the Director of Policy with Circulate San Diego, and I want to first thank Mayor Faulconer and his staff for inviting me to be here today, and especially thank Mayor Faulconer for increasing Vision Zero funding in the May Revise, which is Circulate San Diego's top budget priority. Vision Zero is the city's goal of ending all traffic fatalities and serious injuries in 10 years by 2025. No loss of life on our city's streets is acceptable, whether you're driving a car, biking, walking, or scooting. But the tragic reality is that in 2018, 57 people died getting around from point A to point B on San Diego's streets. And over half of those fatalities were pedestrians, people simply walking. Last year, we were grateful to work with the mayor to fund Circulate's campaign to fix the fatal 15, the 15 most dangerous intersections in San Diego, a big step in the direction of fulfilling Vision Zero. We were glad to stand with the mayor when those intersections were completed earlier this year, well before the fiscal year even ended. Today, Mayor Faulconer is committing to increase funding for safe streets in the May Revise. His use of expected revenue from scooter permitting is a creative win-win approach towards reaching Vision Zero in San Diego. The new revenue will support the 3 E's of Vision Zero: education, enforcement, and engineering. Increasing budget funding for Vision Zero will save lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Peter Comiskey, who's the Executive Director of the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. He and many other, as you can see, stakeholders behind us who love this park and who are really looking forward for some of these additional investments. Peter? Thank you.
Well, good morning, and first, I think it's crystal clear that the budget that the Mayor has proposed here in the May revise certainly delivers on a bunch, many of the concerns that we had shared, and identified a number of the cost elements that are very, very important to our park. If there's one thing Balboa Park Cultural Partnership loves, it's getting people together. And so there are actually three coalitions that I'll be representing today. Clearly, the first that Dr. Snyder will talk a little more about is the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership and the massive infrastructure need that this park has in our member venues. Dr. Snyder will talk a bit more about that. The second was a gentleman by the name of Renee Smith, a very engaged citizen who started to do a lot of work around the park in recognising the need for the rest of the park to also maintain that excellent experience that the Cultural Partnership members provide within our buildings. And he identified the restrooms as a particularly significant need. Both of those elements, it is excellent that the funding will be retained in that park. That very important funding will be retained in the park to address the start of those needs. The three rangers, clearly a very important part, and it was great to see the Mayor responding and including those rangers, not just from a safety and security perspective, but also the guest experience. Those rangers are amazing guest experience people for our park. Finally, for Arts and Culture San Diego, a coalition of over 100 different arts and culture groups. It's wonderful when that funding was able to be maintained this year, and we look forward to many years where the benefit of arts and culture, not just in our wonderful buildings that we have here, but also through our communities at every level, can be further celebrated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. And next up is Steve Snyder, the president of the Fleet Science Center and chair of the Steve Snyder is president-elect of the Science Center and chair of the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. I got it right. Thank you. Thank you.
It's all good.
I can get it eventually.
So, Mayor Faulconer, on behalf of the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership and our Restrooms and Rooftops Alliance, we want to thank you for maintaining the $9.3 million of capital reinvestment here in Balboa Park. While we are disappointed we won't be able to use that money for its original intended purpose, it's going to be a welcome kickstart to a reinvestment in the Balboa Park. It is the impact, to really get the full impact of this investment, however, we realize it's going to take more than just funds. It's going to take a true collaboration, a true coordination between the annual investment that the city makes in this park and the daily investment made by the cultural organizations who live and work here. Over the last 9 years, those cultural organizations have invested $80 million in capital improvements to city-owned assets, and over the next 9 years, those same organizations plan to invest an additional $200 million of capital investment in this park, primarily coming from private philanthropic support. So now imagine what it would be like to be able to leverage that civic investment from the city with that philanthropic investment from the cultural organizations. And we don't have to imagine far. We can just look right down at the Mingay Museum project to see an example of this. There, the city has put forward funding and will be taking on a roof repair project that the city is uniquely positioned to do, and that will be leveraged by tens of millions of dollars of private investment into a city-owned facility that will ultimately improve the experience for visitors to Balboa Park. And that's what this is all about, improving the experience of Balboa Park. Now, the potential impact of that kind of collaboration and work between the city and the cultural organizations cannot be overstated. And the support identified in the May revise is a step towards that collaboration, and more so towards realizing the full potential of Balboa Park, not just as the jewel in San Diego's crown, but as the standard by which all other parks are measured. So, Mayor Faulconer, we thank you for your ongoing support and investment in the ever-changing, always amazing Balboa Park.
Thank you, Steve. Very well said. Thank you, Steve. Well said. Next, I'd like to ask John Bolthouse, who's the Executive Director of the Friends of Balboa Park. As you can tell, there's a Balboa Park theme here today. So, John, welcome, and I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for inviting us to stand with you here in Balboa Park to be the champions that this beloved and historic place is calling us all to be. Balboa Park is nothing short of a scenic and cultural masterpiece, a place that is something for every single citizen of our community. Nowhere this side of the Mississippi can you see the beauty of a real Rembrandt, or witness the magic of performance at a live theater, or get beaten in a round of golf, or stare down an alligator, or stare up at a giraffe, or listen to a concert on the lawn. All in one place, right here in Balboa Park. But Balboa Park is only as magnificent as we commit to make it. And when I say we, I mean every single one of us as San Diegans. Balboa Park belongs to all of us, and that means the responsibility to ensure it is properly maintained also falls on all of us. We should thank those wonderful members of the community who have been fighting for this issue for so many years, challenging all of us to demand a better Balboa Park. Whether that's elevating the park in the public eye, delivering world-class public programs, insisting on greater investment in the park's infrastructure, replanting the tree canopy here in the park, or inspiring us with a vision for the park's future, we stand on your shoulders. We thank the thousands of dedicated volunteers, working professionals, and generous philanthropists who refuse to quit. I'm proud to be part of the Balboa Park family that has come together today to once again speak with one voice, with one simple goal in mind: ensuring the park's magnificence and long-term sustainability. All of us at Friends of Balboa Park, and may I say all of my colleagues here today, thank Mayor Faulconer for his leadership in challenging all San Diegans to join him to make the first meaningful investment in the park in a very long time. And I want to thank those members of the City Council who have publicly stated their support for the mayor's budget that would begin to address the hundreds of millions of dollars in deferred maintenance that currently afflicts Balboa Park. Ultimately, we hope their collective support will be unanimous. I think all of us here would love to someday proudly say that this mayor and this city council at this moment in time helped to relaunch a rebirth of Balboa Park. Let's do this together.
Yeah, John. All right, I can't top that. So, well said, John. Again, thank you to so many of our Balboa Park stakeholders for your advocacy, your support, and your love for this great, beautiful park. This new budget investment, I think, is going to go a long way to helping to restore that luster, and it's a first but important step. And also, to all of our city team who really spent a lot of time working on this budget, to our homeless service providers who are here, who really helped taking the lead on innovative programs, showing leadership, compassion, and continuing to move the needle with one goal: helping people to get off the street. This is a collective effort to make these investments, which I think are the right priorities for our city and particularly for our neighborhoods. Thank you all for being here. And with that, anybody behind me and myself will be available for any questions one-on-one. Thank you. Thank you, guys.